Coming up on First at 4, if you've tried to make a call or get a text and just can't, you're certainly not alone. Tens of thousands of people across the country reported issues today. Plus, an unprecedented court ruling in Alabama is impacting women going through IVF in the state. How the case is also impacting the campaign trail.
Plus, a wet Thursday evening is looming. Your forecast coming up as Mountain News First at 4 starts now.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News First at 4.
Good afternoon, I'm Steve Hensley. First at 4, a school resource officer was one of the first to respond when several apartments near Roy G. Everso Elementary School caught fire. Firefighters at the scene say the fire is now contained and nobody was hurt. WYMT's Chandler Wilcox is live at the scene with how a school resource officer helped folks to safety. Chandler?
Thank you, Steve. School resource officer Barry Ingalls says that he helped students get inside the building and out of harm's way as the fire department arrived. The whole situation began at approximately 1:30 Thursday afternoon. The building sits on Broadway Street near Roy G. Everso Elementary. Ingalls says school officials took more precautions after hearing an explosion.
I heard what sounded like a small explosion. It could have been a propane tank or anything. So I contacted the office staff and had them evacuate the first and second floors of the school to the gymnasium, just in case something else.
It's hard to tell from where I'm standing, but the gym is actually on the other side of the school. Coming up at 6, we'll explain that students were not the only people able to help to safety. But for now, in Hazard, Chandler Wilcox, WYMT Mountain News, back to you.
All right, Chandler, thank you very much. Certainly good news. Nobody was injured in this, and school officials say they were able to dismiss on time. AT&T officials say all cell service has been restored. The problem, which began early this morning, impacted tens of thousands of cellular customers across the country and, of course, included some here in eastern Kentucky. According to data from Down Detector, AT&T had more than 73,000 reported incidents at the peak of the outage, with people seeing SOS messages displayed in the status bar. Customers with T-Mobile and Verizon also reported issues. One Kentucky legislator is looking to help domestic violence shelters. Senator David Yates filed Senate Bill 214, aiming to create tax incentives for domestic violence shelters. He says if there was a way to make incentives such as tax write-offs, more folks would be willing to make donations, adding it would ultimately impact the victims using these services.
Right now, with our tax code, we have all these different type of tax write-offs, whether it's the new vehicles or other costs. And I was hoping to finally find a way that would incentivize businesses and individuals to make donations to a very worthy need that protects sometimes the most vulnerable within our society.
The bill was sent to the Committee of Appropriations and Revenue. We will have more on this tonight at 6.
Well, after some mainly dry weather for most of your Thursday, we are tracking some changes as we go into this evening, also by tonight. Right now, though, here's a live look from I-64 in Rowan County over at Moorhead. That current temperature is sitting at 55 degrees as we stay cloudy as we go into this afternoon. But notice up on First Alert Pinpoint Doppler that moisture is not too far away, knocking on the door for places like Estill County, Powell County, also Menifee County, zooming into maybe a few sprinkles in Rockcastle, Jackson, and Estill and Powell counties. But notice some heavier rainfall along I-64, also close to the Mountain Parkway, so a heads up. In Estill, Powell, and Menifee counties, some heavier showers not too far away over the next few minutes there. Up to 60 for Jackson, also Pikeville, 64 in Manchester, and 63 for London at this hour. So another very warm day continues across the mountains, and that will continue for one more day on Friday. But we are tracking some much cooler weather as we go into the first half of your weekend. If you have those plans this evening, you may need the umbrella as higher rain chances are on the way. Some of the rain could be heavy. Also tracking some gusty winds as well. A little bit of a break for the first half of your Friday, and then some more precipitation on the way, and maybe some wintry weather to kick off this weekend. All those details coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Cameron, thank you very much. Certainly need a little rain to put out some forest fires that have been popping up in the last day or so. The Alabama Supreme Court's decision on frozen embryos created during in vitro fertilization has put the issue of reproductive rights squarely back in the spotlight on the presidential campaign trail. The court ruled that the embryos have the same rights as children. CBS's Natalie Brand explains.
Alabama's largest hospital has paused IVF treatments after the state's Supreme Court ruled the embryos have the same rights as children, leaving patients in limbo.
It's completely just derailed a lot of hope.
34-year-old Jasmine York has a 13-year-old daughter, but turned to IVF to have a second child after multiple ectopic pregnancies.
We were really looking forward to March 20th was when I was supposed to transfer.
The court's decision stems from a wrongful death lawsuit filed by 3 couples who lost frozen embryos stored at an Alabama fertility clinic.
In this case, the right and ethical thing to do is to preserve life.
Alabama's unprecedented ruling is reverberating on the presidential campaign trail, where reproductive rights has become a key issue following the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, ending the constitutional right to abortion. Wednesday night, Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley spoke to Gayle King on CNN's King Charles about the court's decision.
I didn't say that I agreed with the Alabama ruling. What the question that I was asked is, do I believe an embryo is a baby? I do think that if you look in the definition, an embryo is considered an unborn baby.
Later today, Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to address the ruling during a roundtable on reproductive rights in the battleground state of Michigan. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
According to the CDC, about 2% of all infants born in the United States are conceived using IVF each year. Congress is facing another possible partial government shutdown. In January, Speaker Mike Johnson announced a deal to fund the government at nearly $1.7 trillion, but the fight over where that money goes and what programs get funded has dragged on for weeks. Now lawmakers are working around the clock to reach a deal before the next government funding deadline on March 1st, which is just more than 1 week away. Coming up on First at 4, whales sing so loud their songs travel through the ocean, but the mechanics behind their voices have been a mystery until now.
Plus, we are trending cooler as we kick off the weekend. Those details after this break.